When a woman expects you to chase her after she pulls away, your silence becomes the move she never saw coming. Most men fall into the trap of trying harder, sending long messages, asking what went wrong, or trying to fix something they didn't even break. They think effort will solve confusion, that chasing will create clarity. But when you hold your position and choose silence instead, you send a message stronger than anything you could ever verbalize. Your silence instantly flips the frame. It tells her, I'm not here to fight for a place where I'm no longer respected. It tells her that you're a man who understands balance, reciprocation, and self-worth. She expected you to react emotionally, but you responded with discipline. She thought she had the power, but suddenly she feels the shift. Because silence is not just the absence of words, it's the presence of strength. This moment becomes deeply unsettling for her because she expected a familiar pattern. She thought you'd chase like every other man. She thought you'd cling, negotiate, or perform emotional gymnastics just to keep her attention, but your silence disrupts her expectations. It breaks the cycle she assumed you would follow. Instead of filling the space with desperation, you fill it with boundaries. Instead of begging for clarity, you allow the distance to reveal truth. Women don't expect men to walk away quietly. They expect reactions, conflict, or attempts to reaffirm affection. They're used to men proving themselves. They're used to men trying to win them back. But when she realizes you're not trying to force yourself into her life, she begins to feel the weight of her own choices. Silence presses on her pride. It challenges her assumptions. It makes her confront how she truly feels without distractions. Silence is powerful because it eliminates manipulation. When you stop reaching out, you strip away power struggles, emotional games, mixed signals, and ego battles. There's no more chasing, no more overinvesting, no more trying to win approval. Your silence communicates that you will not participate in a dynamic where you're the only one trying. You are no longer rewarding distance with attention. You're no longer giving energy to someone who isn't giving it back. This creates a vacuum, an emotional space where she can finally see the value of what she had. And in that silence, she has to ask herself the questions she never had to face before. Why isn't he chasing me? Was he actually stronger than I thought? Did I underestimate him? These questions often hit harder than anything you could ever say. Your silence also forces her to reflect on the difference you brought into her life. When you stop chasing, she starts remembering, not because you guilted her, not because you pressured her, but because the absence of your presence reminds her of what she took for granted. She begins to realize the stability, attention, affection, and consistency you offered. A man who can be silent is a man who has emotional discipline, and emotional discipline is rare. It's attractive. It's magnetic. Silence doesn't push her away. It draws her closer because it shows her that you're not controlled by your feelings. You're not ruled by panic. You're not owned by fear of loss. You stand firm. You stay grounded. But the most powerful part of your silence isn't what it does to her. It's what it does for you. Silence gives you space to think clearly without emotional noise. It protects your dignity. It restores your balance. It stops you from acting impulsively or investing in uncertainty. Your silence reestablishes your standards. You become a man who will only match energy, not chase approval, and that alone is what changes everything. She expected you to crumble, but instead you rose above the situation with strength. In the end, silence becomes your greatest ally. It reveals truth, it commands respect, and it reminds both you and her that your presence is a privilege, not something she can take lightly. When you choose to disappear, it's not an act of fear, weakness, or avoidance. It's an act of recalibration. You're not running away from her. You're stepping away from the emotional chaos, mixed signals, and unstable energy that made the connection feel one-sided. Disappearing is a form of internal reset, a way to reclaim the masculine frame that may have been slipping without you even realizing it. Most men believe staying present, constantly texting, reassuring, or trying to fix things will earn them respect or closeness, but the opposite is true. When you pull back, you remove yourself from the reactive space and return to the decisive, composed version of yourself. This is the version she was drawn to in the first place. Your disappearance is not about punishing her. It's about realigning yourself with your standards. The strength of disappearing lies in the message it quietly sends. You are not a man who begs for clarity or validation. You are not a man who will fight for someone who pushes him away while expecting him to keep chasing. Disappearing resets the emotional dynamic because it breaks the pattern she expected. She thought you'd continue pursuing even as her effort decreased. She assumed your interest would override your self-respect. But the moment you walk away, she's forced to confront a reality she never anticipated, that your attention wasn't guaranteed. Your withdrawal highlights the imbalance she may have been ignoring and exposes the truth that you won't settle for scraps of affection. This shift creates a ripple effect. When you disappear, you reclaim power not through force but through absence. You detach from the outcome and focus on yourself again. Your goals, your peace, your mental clarity. This is the foundation of masculine frame, the ability to stay centered regardless of what someone else is doing. Disappearing gives you the distance needed to see the situation for what it truly is, not what your emotions wanted it to be. With space, you recognize patterns you couldn't see while you were emotionally invested. You start to understand whether she pulled away because of temporary stress or because she was never fully committed. Instead of reacting impulsively, you observe calmly. This calm detachment is what resets the entire frame. For her, your disappearance forces a moment of accountability. It eliminates the shield of ego she may have been hiding behind. When you were available, she could rationalize her distance, telling herself you'd always be there. But once you stop showing up, she has to confront her own contribution to the disconnect. Disappearing removes the comfort of your consistent presence and replaces it with uncertainty. It makes her question whether she pushed too far or underestimated your strength. It makes her realize that a man who can walk away is a man who can't be manipulated or taken for granted. And that awareness shifts the dynamic completely, but most importantly, disappearing is about choosing yourself. It's about refusing to chase someone who refuses to meet you halfway. It's about stepping back to preserve your dignity and emotional well-being. In that space, you rebuild your confidence, your purpose, your identity outside the relationship or connection. You redirect your energy into personal growth instead of emotional pursuit. When you do this, you naturally elevate your value not because you tried to impress her, but because you invested in becoming a stronger version of yourself. Women feel that shift, even from a distance. They notice when your energy changes, when your focus sharpens, when your life begins moving forward without them. Disappearing resets everything, your mindset, the dynamic, and the emotional balance between you. It's not about abandoning the connection. It's about refusing to drown in it. It's the moment you reclaim your frame and show her, without saying a word, that you're not afraid to lose her if it means preserving yourself. And that level of self-mastery is what makes her rethink everything. The moment you stop chasing is the moment the truth finally steps into the light. When you pull back, you're not just creating distance, you're creating a mirror. In that mirror, her real intentions, motives, and feelings become exposed in a way they never could when you were constantly reaching out and trying to make things work. As long as you were the one initiating, giving attention, and trying to move things forward, she never had to show her true level of investment. She never had to meet you halfway. She never had to prove anything because your pursuit filled the space that her effort should have occupied. But when you fall silent and step back, that space becomes empty, and now it's her turn to fill it or walk away. Either way, the truth reveals itself. Your absence becomes a test she can't avoid. If she genuinely cared, she will feel the disconnect immediately. Women may hide emotions behind pride, fear, uncertainty, or even ego, but they can't ignore a sudden void. If you mattered, that silence hits her differently, deeply, unexpectedly, and emotionally. She starts wondering why you stopped texting first, why you suddenly became quiet, why your energy changed. She replays past conversations, trying to understand what shifted, and in doing so, she reveals the emotional attachment she may have been denying even to herself. When a man's presence has value, his absence has impact, and she feels it. But if she wasn't interested, if you were just entertainment, just a backup plan, just emotional support, or just someone she kept around for attention, all of that becomes obvious too. She won't reach out, she won't check on you, she won't try to reconnect, she will quietly move on because she was never truly invested. It might sting, but it's clarity, and clarity is a gift. Your silence weeds out anyone who didn't genuinely want to be in your life. You stop guessing, you stop wondering, you stop giving energy to someone who only wanted you on their terms. Pulling back exposes intentions faster than any conversation ever could. This is why silence is such a powerful filter. You're not forcing anything. You're simply allowing the natural truth to surface. When you stop chasing, you stop carrying the entire connection on your back. You let things fall into place or fall apart, and whatever happens, you see the reality clearly. If she steps forward, makes effort, starts conversations, or shows concern, you know her heart was there all along. If she does nothing, you know she was never meant for the journey ahead. Either way, your silence becomes the truth. Tell her. The change this creates within her is also significant. Women often don't realize what a man brings into their life until that presence disappears. When she no longer has access to your consistency, affection, support, and emotional strength, the contrast hits her. She begins to think about how stable you were, how attentive you were, how grounded you were, and suddenly the things she once overlooked become the things she misses. Your absence becomes a spotlight that reveals everything she ignored when you were around. She begins to feel the loss, not because you said anything, but because silence forces her to confront what she took for granted. But the deeper transformation happens within you. By not chasing, you learn to value your own energy. You learn to accept truth without resistance. You learn to let go of uncertainty and stop trying to force outcomes. You grow sharper, stronger, more centered. You stop investing in empty spaces and start protecting your emotional well-being. Her reaction, whether she comes back or disappears, becomes secondary, because what matters most is that you've gained clarity. You've gained control, you've gained self-respect. Your absence doesn't just reveal her intentions, it reveals your own strength. It shows that you're a man who no longer fears the truth, a man who can walk away from the wrong things to make space for the right ones. And that, in itself, changes everything. The real glow-up begins the moment you stop reacting and start choosing. When a woman pulls away or takes you for granted, the typical response for most men is to overthink, overreach, or overinvest. They try to fix the situation, win her back, or prove their worth, but the strongest version of a man does the opposite. He turns inward. He chooses emotional control over emotional desperation. He chooses self-mastery over self-doubt. This shift is where your transformation begins. Because when you stop letting someone else's behavior determine your value, You reclaim your identity, your purpose, and your masculine center. That's the real glow up, not money, not muscles, not a new look control over your own mind and emotions. When you stop chasing and start focusing inward, something powerful happens. Your clarity returns. You no longer make decisions out of fear of losing her. You no longer tie yourself worth to whether she texts back or pulls away. You stop acting from insecurity and start acting from strength. Emotional control is what separates a man who's easily swayed from a man who stands firm regardless of the situation. This control doesn't mean you stop caring or become cold. It means you stop letting emotions dictate your actions. You become the calm in the storm, the steady force that doesn't crumble under uncertainty, and women notice this shift instantly, even if you say nothing. Self-mastery is the internal discipline that keeps you grounded when situations try to destabilize you. It's waking up and choosing your goals instead of refreshing messages. It's redirecting your energy from someone's mixed signals into your own purpose. It's working on your mind, your fitness, your skills, your mission, because these are things you can control. Most men crumble when a woman pulls away because they made her the center of their emotional universe. But the glow-up begins when you make yourself the center again. When you invest in becoming stronger, wiser, more grounded, more capable, you create a version of yourself that doesn't chase love. He attracts it. And this transformation affects her more than you expect. When a man stops reacting emotionally and starts rising mentally, it changes the entire dynamic. She sees the shift. She feels the difference. She notices that the man who once gave all his attention now gives it to himself. She sees that you're not begging, not proving, not chasing. You're evolving. That evolution is magnetic. It challenges her perception of you. She begins to wonder how you suddenly became stronger, calmer, more distant, more focused. She starts to question whether she misjudged your value, and that's when the dynamic flips. When you gain emotional control and self-mastery, you become unpredictable in the best way. You are no longer easily influenced, no longer easily manipulated, no longer emotionally dependent on her responses. This independence makes you stand out in a world where most men are too reactive, too needy, or too driven by fear. A man with self-mastery doesn't ask, "How do I get her back?" He asks, "How do I become the best version of myself?" And ironically, that's the exact mindset that often makes her rethink everything. But the most important part of this glow-up isn't how it affects her. It's how it changes you. When you center yourself, you regain your confidence. Your mind becomes clearer, your self-esteem strengthens, you stop chasing temporary validation and start building long-term value. You become a man who moves with purpose, not panic. A man who chooses peace over drama. A man who knows that losing someone who couldn't value you is not a loss. It's a blessing. The ultimate glow-up is becoming someone you're proud of. Someone who doesn't break under emotional pressure. Someone who knows his worth without needing anyone to confirm it. And when you reach that point, you no longer fear losing her or anyone else, because you finally understand something powerful. The right people don't need to be chased, they stay. And the man who masters himself is the man everyone eventually comes back to.